We've got our guest is the founder of Meridian Lee, Rachel Kinley, and we will have Daniela as our host, who is a leadership coach and has been advising a number of startups and various companies in our industry here in the Portland area. And so at this time, I'll turn it over to them for the start of this session. Pose your questions through the question and answer tab at the base of the screen. And we'll look forward to a really interesting session here between Rachel and Daniela. So take it away, please.
Yeah, hello, everyone. I just wanted to say something. I've been so impressed with what I saw, the talks and the sessions this morning already. And it's really amazing because I'm seeing a theme here, right? It's these women empowering other women. And I think this is absolutely amazing. Yeah, so a little bit about myself before we dive into why we're all really here, which is getting to know and hear more about Meridian Lee and Rachel. I've been in the apparel industry as a designer for about 20 years, 10 of which in corporate. I was working for Adidas in Germany, Nike here in the States, and Columbia Sportswear. I got laid off in 2008 and then pivoted to being a freelancer or a contractor, and did that for about 10 years. And during that, I was also co-founder or co-partner in a Portland-based design and sourcing agency, and we worked for multiple companies from start to finish to delivering products into warehouse, and did that for a while. And 2 years ago, I stepped out of the design function because my daughter had some health issues, and I then started to see what I could do and how can I support the industry further. And I became an energy leadership coach, and I'm now supporting creatives, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are wanting to find a pathway to get to more influence, income, and impact in the world. And this is really an amazing opportunity here, because really what Rachel is doing is making a huge impact for other women's lives. And yeah, I'm so excited to introduce Rachel Kinley, who was bold, brave, and courageous enough to follow her calling and start Meridian Lee, which supports women and girls that have suffered enslavement or human trafficking. And it through the skill of sewing. And so I'm super inspired by her. I'm sure you all will too. So here is Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, thanks so much for chatting with me today. Yeah, I feel like you gave a great intro. We've been doing this for just about 6 years now, and I've been working in the fashion industry for about 20 years now. So I think, like a lot of us, we started to notice maybe some little problems when we looked a little deeper in how things were being made that we were designing. And so I think that's where it started for a lot of us, just wondering, oh, actual hands touched this, who was that who actually sewed this piece? So that's how it started.
Yeah. So what was do you remember like one inspiration or one instance where you just felt like, okay, this is what I have to do. This is what I want to do. And I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, I feel like that's an interesting question. I think that it was little nudges all along. So the first time I really started thinking about it as a design assistant just out of school with my first couple jobs, one of my tasks was to look at costing sheets, and I really hated it because it wasn't very creative, but it was like just kind of comparing last year, the years previous, what we paid to have this collar sewn on. And it was just really looking at all those little details and making sure that we weren't essentially overpaying. And I just started thinking like, wow, 10 cents to sew that on, that's, wow, it might be nice to live that in that place because it must be really inexpensive to live there. And the more I researched it, the more I felt like, wait, how is that person able to do that for their job and still eat, you know, in India? So it was just sort of a slow unraveling of that story, and just asking people kind of naively, wait, how is this possibly 1 penny to do this, you know? So I think, yeah, a lot of us have just for me, it's been like 15 years since I started to sort of go down that path. But yeah.
And that's really amazing that you're questioning these things, like you're alert, you're aware, you're questioning. And I think that's key, really, because it's so easy to take things for granted and just go with the flow. I remember being in costing meetings and we're fighting about piping.
Yeah, yeah.
On a pair of pants, what are you gonna, you just have a plain pant, or it's about cents, nickels on the dime. Yeah. So I'm interested. The name Meridian Lee. Where did that come from?
Oh yeah. So I brought my handy little globe here to show you. So a line of meridian is actually a line of longitude around the globe that's connecting different places, and I just think it's a pretty word, but it's actually a line of longitude. And then Lee is the sheltered place behind a rock, so it's just like a little place of safety. And so it's sort of like, I think it's symbolic because so many times the women I meet with, they just need like a minute to catch their breath, and be like, have their just essential needs to be met, then they can do amazing work. If they just have like this small loan or just somebody to give them a chance with the work that they're doing.
I love that. When it already starts with a company name that has such deep meaning, it really, it just shows that there is more. It's soul in there.
Thanks.
It's soul in there.
So it was a domain that wasn't taken yet, so
yeah,
that helped also.
That helped.
Full disclosure.
The idea first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the intention is first. Awesome. So like what I'm finding, what I'm very curious about is how you found the first women to work with that really ignited that. Because for students that are maybe new or to the industry or early on in their careers and work in corporations, it's all a little more segregated separated. So each job function is a little there. It's like buckets, right? And so buckets, and they determine where it's being made and where where the factories are and where you get your materials from. And for you it had to be completely different, right?
Yeah, I love that question. I was thinking about it after we first chatted, and I realized that to me this is a real testament to the Portland design community, because I've worked in New York and San Francisco, and those are great places, great design communities, but I feel like the Portland design community is really special because there's more of a sense of collaboration, and you can really, put your idea out there and talk it over with all different people, and they'll say like, oh, you should talk to my friend, or instead of holding like an idea so close that you can't even get it developed. So honestly, what happened was I had a friend who just asked me if I would do a volunteer product development job for a nonprofit, and that's how everything started. So she just knew that I'd been thinking about that. And so she had that sort of collaborative spirit, and we still work on things together. So,
so that's beautiful. So that's how you got into that space where it was nonprofit.
mm-hmm.
And so what next? So what did that open up for you?
So I started volunteering with a nonprofit, and our first trip, I think it was maybe around, I want to say 2005, maybe a little later, but they needed someone a product developer to go to Peru and develop some products with a group of Quechua indigenous people. And so it was mind blowing. I just totally, opened up my mind to all the different possibilities. And I think on a side note, I think as a designer, a lot of people in the room we have similar backgrounds. And I think if you're ever able to be in a design situation with people who have really different backgrounds, then it's just really helps you develop as a designer. I think just people who are just have grown up with different tools, different languages, different ways of doing things, even in their home. It's just that it was just a great first product development trip. So that was the first group that I met with in Peru. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. But I know that you are producing pretty much, well, where are the main places where you
it really changes from year to year, but right now our main focus is 2 communities in India, 2 communities in Kenya, and 1 in China. And we've worked in Jordan, Greece, Haiti. Oh, also we're doing a little project in Jordan right now. So it kind of depends on the needs of the particular group. Sometimes, the exchange rate, or, this year with the pandemic affecting the supply chain everywhere, it's really keeps it interesting. And I thought that would be a lot more difficult, but honestly, a lot of times a project ends because the women I work with are either able to sell locally. I think the best case scenario is they don't need me anymore, so like they've gotten their connection to the market. And that's like the moment of success, is when I've totally, canceled myself out, I think, which is sort of a weird business model, but that to me is success.
That's earth shattering already. Yeah. Right? That's like so different from
it's kind of counter.
Yeah, counterintuitive, but it seems to be working for you, because there's more areas to help, or more communities to help. So can you tell us a little more about the women that you're helping and working with?
Yeah, let me just, would this be a good time to show a few photos?
That would be great.
Okay. It's just, I only have a few. It's fun to, I think, put a face to a name. I just showed you all of them at once. Okay, so can you see it clearly? Okay, so this is just sort of a broad overview. In the upper left, we have Caroline in Nairobi, and then to the right, Nettie and Priscilla in a different sewing group, also in Kenya. The lower right is choosing some yarn colors in India in a weaving group, and then the off to the lower left there is Lee in China and her granddaughter. So that's definitely the most fun part, is just getting to know people personally and just seeing what they're into, or like the photo of Lee I just love so much, with her granddaughter who was sort of riding her bike around outside. But it's just a whole other picture, I think, where, I don't know, you get to know people and be friends, and that adds to the design process. Let's see. This is Sahar in the floral shirt on the right, and she leads a group of Syrian refugees in Amman, Jordan.
Oh, wow.
So we're here working on, we worked on some leather slippers, and the project we worked on this year was olive wood Christmas ornaments. And they also do some amazing soap making there, which has been a great bestseller for this nonprofit. And during COVID, we sold a lot of soap. But so she's really amazing. She's actually from Jordan, but she manages a group of Syrian artisans while they're waiting to be placed. They're waiting to be, to be able to move, usually to Toronto or somewhere in Australia. So they're making a living while they're waiting to see where they're going to live next.
So, so they are doing different kinds of product, right? Or do you do addition specialty items just for the holiday season?
Oh, so I should explain this better. So are you asking, so the group that we were developing products for, they were interested in having these olive wood ornaments, soap, some embroidered pieces, but I should specify that was sort of the product development sourcing part of our business. Whereas I should have said this in the beginning, but we cherry picked a small selection of items for Meridian Lee that we sell on our website. And it's more like Pacific Northwest outdoor, but we work with a pretty wide variety of artisans.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's amazing. So you work with different artisans, you're developing and sourcing product, working with these groups that really help women in whatever situation they're finding themselves in. Skills and have those abilities. And so there's Meridian Lee arm, and then there's also the sourcing and development. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Okay. And this is Ellie in the red shirt. She's the manager of a group in China of about usually around 10 women. And then on the right is Dawn. She has since had her back brace removed, but she has some serious sort of ongoing health problems after a surgery. And this is a place where she can take the breaks she needs to. And as a newer sewer, she's able to work on some simpler projects. And I'll show you some examples later on. I actually picked up some samples to show. But and they're one of the main groups I work with.
That's something that really fascinated me. Like when I heard about it from you, like earlier this week, is that the circumstances of the workers and the women are taken into account. So it's not like this robotic sewing line where everybody just has to fall in line and has a quota.
Yeah, there's a huge group of skilled workers that I think we're missing out on when we only focus on the small, kind of traditionally skilled people. But that's one of our biggest parameters, is we work around the abilities of the people who are involved with. So this group actually has some women who have recovered from leprosy, and you don't really hear about that much anymore, but their fine motor skills are a little bit diminished. So we work on making sure that the products they're working on are make sense. And it's not difficult to just alter the product a tiny bit to make sure we're keeping in mind what's best for them. So that's definitely a parameter that I hadn't considered before in design that makes it really interesting.
Yeah, that's very unique.
Okay, here's one of the last slides. This is a group. This is the most recent group I've worked with in Nairobi, and the lower right, the woman in the wrap scarf, the navy wrap scarf, is Priscilla. So she leads the group, and it tends to be refugees from Rwanda. I talk about trafficking a lot, but I think basically anyone who's in the situation of experiencing extreme poverty is at risk of trafficking, or that's just a difficult situation that a lot of women face, that's one of the only alternatives. And so that's something that basically plays a part of every group we work with. But this was a really fun day because we'd worked on all these different designs, and some of the older women are the sewers here, and then some of the girls in the upper right are part of a anti-trafficking group. So they were there to model the scarves, and part of the proceeds from the sales went to helping them to travel around to different schools and talk with young women about just dangers of human trafficking and how to just be safe and take care. So that was a really exciting day to see the two different groups kind of come together. And then, I just, on the last page, I just have a few. These are more of the things we actually sell on the Meridian Lee website these are this year the things that have sold the best for us. And you can see they're just,
so fun also with the yellow hardware.
It's practical, but and they're just really sturdy. But so yeah, that's a really quick overview. It's difficult to weed down to show you just a few, but you get the gist of it.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful product. So here, one thing that I picked up on was that you are changing the design based on the capabilities.
Yeah, let me show you. Yeah, so one of the
that is the scarf.
Yeah, so this is you saw Priscilla wearing this wrap scarf, and so in that group they're just really training newer sewers, and so some of the ladies, they're still as they're still learning this, we figured out they could do this like hand-tied knot on the fringe, and it just makes it really feel luxurious and special, and that's something they can do together. And as they're still gaining momentum with their actual sewing, to be able to do the more detailed finishing work, that's still just a couple people. So we try to look for ways we can include everybody, but I think it really leads to the best product. In the beginning, I was nervous that we would not be able to do the best work that way, but it just makes it an interesting design problem to solve. So
yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, I was just going to show you one more. This was in one of the photos you saw at Dawn's in China. And so we were kind of working on this like round clutch bag, but it just seemed like it just was going to be really difficult to sew that circle. So we just have been sticking more toward straight lines, and I don't feel like we really had to compromise. I mean, it definitely changed the design, but that was just something I hadn't considered before, that I would just, this is what we're doing. I wasn't considering the skills of the actual makers.
Yeah. So it's definitely, that quote, you teach somebody how to fish. You don't just give him a fish or them a fish. You teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
And Meridian Lee, you're offering like a path to the ocean, or exposure to that, at least to the US market.
Yeah, that's really the key. I think I love that saying. I hadn't heard that before, but I feel like really the key to everything is just giving, especially women, access to the market. And I think, Americans are really generous in their giving to charity, building wells and bringing in, shoes or food. But ultimately, everyone I've ever met as I'm traveling, they just want a chance to use the skills they have. They're not, I just think after a while it starts to wear you down to be receiving handouts, especially for maybe people whose nations used to colonize your country. I just think it can be sort of demeaning after a while. So just to be able to have a fair chance, and like you say, have a seat at the table, is everything.
what is, you're bringing up a really important point. Yeah, going there as an American with all this access to resources.
Yeah.
How do you stay receptive and open to all these stories that you hear that are difficult, aren't they?
Oh yeah, I have a really good therapist. She's amazing. Yeah, that's something that the fashion design school didn't train me for. You know, seeing some really difficult things. I think after a while you start to feel like you're not as fazed by some things, but I think, yeah, they're just, mostly it's really positive and heartening. And I think it's been especially interesting during COVID because, Americans, I know it's a really hard time and it's difficult, but the women that I work with this is just sort of par for the course, like life's hard and you run out of some things and you just make do with something else. And so I feel like they're sort of like, are you okay? Like they're checking in on Americans but it's like hardship is pretty normal part of life for most people in the history of the world. So yeah, I guess I've learned a lot about just keeping going during a hard time from the women I work with.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I remember when I traveled to Bangladesh and for the first time on my first trip, and it is something that I will never forget because I was young and I was just doing this tunnel vision. I'm so shocking. It was quite shocking, and yeah, there was a situation where it definitely broke me open.
Oh
and,
yeah.
It's.
I hope everybody can have that. I think as more people are traveling, and not just to the Eiffel Tower or Stonehenge or whatever, but I think more and more people are interested in really seeing, having an authentic, eating the real local food, and that opens you up to real people. And so I'm hopeful that people will start to make those connections and realize that, what they buy affects this community around the world from them.
Yeah. Talking about travel, well, now travel is not so much happening, but on a regular, let's say, or in the past, how often did you travel and all over the world? So
usually it's only a couple times a year, and we just try to pack in, like a layover here, or what makes sense to stop by for a couple days on the way home. And I wish it could be more often. I also have 2 teenagers, so I'm trying to not, I think I'll travel more once they're just in a few years when they're older, but for now, that's what it looks like. And we have so many awesome tools with, just like now you're in Portland, but I need to talk to you this way, so we make it work.
Yeah. What was so the biggest impact from Meridian Lee now with COVID? How are you navigating it?
Yeah, it's been tricky. I feel like there were a couple of weeks where I wondered if everything would just sort of fall apart. But one solution I'm kind of proud of is there's a group that we work with in Northern India, and primarily they've done woodworking. But the main leader of that group is a design professor, and he does this really cool, I have some examples to show you.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Does this really cool like paper artwork, these paper kits that he uses to teach design thinking to students. And so in the spring, he wasn't even allowed to export anything, and their town was completely sealed off. But we still wanted to figure out a way for them to be getting some revenue and able to keep going. So he sent me the files for these kits, and we just had them laser cut here in Portland. so that the group I work with in the States could keep selling these paper kits. And it worked out so well because I think, you know, a lot of kids are trapped at home right now, and it turned out that this is actually really a cool stress relieving activity to make something with your hands and just, I don't know, just see things in a new way. So
where can one get some of those? I've got a 13-year-old.
Oh, nice.
So yeah.
Yeah, what's the best way to share a link to this nonprofit's website? I can just tell you it's.
Yeah, let's see. Let me see. I think we can put that into.
Rachel, if you want to just let me know, I will post it into the chat area, or if you have it handy, go ahead and put it into the chat area for everybody to see.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, they look and quite complex, actually.
Yeah, it's actually, they're really satisfying. I don't know. It's just, I was interested in, yeah, it just really came together. So I feel like we just have to come up with creative solutions, and hopefully we can get back to some semblance of normalcy next year. But it's just been fun to, I mean, it's just another design problem, you know, to try to solve. So
yeah. So of course, with COVID, everybody's in the same boat. We all have the same challenge of figuring out how to, you know, we're like 9 months in or something like that.
Yeah.
Of course, we're getting quite good at this new way of life. But in general, especially as an entrepreneur, you're bumping it up against walls or challenges, and you know, things that you need to solve. Roadblocks. What is one thing that keeps you going? Like when that.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that it has gotten easier for me over time, especially the 3 slides I posted. Those are specifically 3 women who, Sahar, Ellie, and Priscilla, they're really skilled, and they honestly could just be, they could have more high profile and better paying jobs if they wanted to. You know, they could work at the Adidas factory or, but the fact that they choose to invest in their neighbors and their community is really, I mean, I think you can't work alongside someone like that and be like, see ya, I'm kind of stressed out now. I mean, you just find a way, it's inspiring, you know, so you tend to get energy from that, I think.
Yeah.
So that's been really encouraging.
Because you're not just doing it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
For the greater good, or leaving the planet better. I
think it's to me it's kind of I feel like it's a luxury, and I think that's like that's part of my pay, you know, is getting to have that energy given back to me. And so yeah, I'm so excited for, you know, any students who are watching. I feel like I feel like we're just in the very early chapters of the ethical design movement. So it's not something that was even on my radar in design school, really. So other than ergonomics maybe, but not who was actually making things. But as I said, it was so eye-opening for me. I mean, now everybody is more aware. Yeah. But back then, there was never one. I mean, we knew that there were factories, but I was completely naive. I went into and was shell-shocked to find that T-shirts are made by hand. Yeah. I was shocked. Yeah, I think now we just have so many tools to share what we're seeing firsthand, and even, you know, just my like personal Instagram account, or just the ability to even send money from your phone quickly, or get early in the pandemic, one of the ladies in China helped me get some KN95 masks really quickly. And it was all over WeChat, you know, just in the middle of the night on my phone. But that's crazy that we have that tool. It just makes me really excited to see what we'll be able to do next and sort of jump over the red tape and bureaucracy.
Yeah. So you said something really important, I think, is we this ethical movement, that we are at the early start of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think schools or universities could do to help prepare students for that? And I haven't been in school for a while.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I wish I could go back to school. I feel so disconnected from what it's actually like now, even from my kids' interaction, seeing them work online today. I don't know. I just think any volunteering you can do, or any just learning about people who are different from yourself, or the needs and challenges of people who have just a different background from yourself, it's going to make you a better designer no matter what you're working on. So, I'm not sure if that's answering the question, but
but it definitely is. I maybe as an idea to include trips. I mean,
yeah,
there's capstone trips in
definitely.
school, right?
Yeah.
And if universities would include that.
Yeah, that would be really good. I had one internship outside of the country in college, but even just yeah, just any exposure you can get to other cultures and other ways of doing things, I think. Yeah, just immersing yourself in another. I mean, I didn't learn to use chopstick until I was in my 20s, and my kids could do that, and when they were 3 or whatever. But just any little interesting things you can learn, and especially I wish I had learned another language. I feel like America really needs to step up in that area, and it's embarrassing to me that I have to, like, other people have to speak English with me when I travel. I try to learn 10 words, or just some like 5 basic phrases just to show I'm trying. But I think that's kind of embarrassing that we're not.
Well, but English is the almost global language, or
yeah,
wherever you go, whether you're in China or anywhere, even if you know, people are also excited to be able to speak English with you, to work on that, or work on skills. But you know what came to me? Something that you said at the beginning, for students. You said you were just curious. You were asking the questions, and even if you just ask the questions for yourself, is going in the industry or observing things and just questioning.
Yeah.
Asking those questions and sitting with those questions.
Yeah. And don't be worried if people are annoyed with you. That one of the bosses I worked for at that time, he was like, those people are grateful that they had that job, which was, that was acceptable for me for a minute. And then, but I just felt like that's even worse, that was, that subsistence level wage was, they should be thankful that they just got that. Like, that's not acceptable. So I think just trust yourself and be okay with, annoying people or frustrating people with your questions. And it's sort of a good mentality.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that is changing, and that's today all of the panels have shown it's women who are really caring and looking out for others, whether they're group leaders that you work with, whether it is like all the panelists today. It's really about caring and nurturing and caring and cheering each other on and helping each other out versus a system that's it's worked really well because it has brought more prosperity and more choices in all areas and aspects. But we're at a point, it's kind of this tipping point where we know we can't keep doing the way, operate the way have operated, and with the questioning and questioning if there a different way, is there a different way to do business and be successful and help out and share. It's really beautiful, and you're one of the renegades who and the ladies on the earlier talks.
Thanks. Yeah, it's really fun to work on. I also I really love the part where, so I've started sourcing for also just for-profit businesses, and I'm fascinated by the prospect that companies are starting to see this as a necessity, that they show that a transparent supply chain, or that they have some sort of mission. So I've made things, I've sourced products for companies who, at the end of the day, I mean, they actually maybe don't care that much about people, but their customers are asking questions. And I think that's really drives change when people are starting to ask, wait, somebody made this, who made this, and where is it from, and what is their life like? And so I'm really, even the companies who really don't care that much, it's an important part of doing business now. You've got to show, I think you're starting to have to show, just have some accountability for what you're doing.
Yeah.
But beyond profitability.
Yeah. And the consumers, customers demanding it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
That is real power, right? We're voting with our dollars. Exactly. And social media has allowed that for the brands and the customer. It's getting more equal, or the balance is tipping.
Yeah, we can kind of say what we want now.
Yeah. Hi, Jim.
Hello. Hey, I thought I would jump back in here with you guys. This has been such a compelling, conversation, and I'm curious. At some point, Rachel, I'm gonna have to talk to you about like how you got your kids to use chopsticks at 3.
Oh,
because I think there's a story in itself right there.
Stabbing motion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's a slightly different method than I used with my kid, but. Hey, we have a question, and I thought this would be a great segue into our towards the last 15 minutes of our session here. We have a question from Amber, who wanted to know more about how she could better help as an instructor at a university design program. So maybe from both of your experiences, why don't we talk a little bit about if you wanted to get involved more in some form of an education program, particularly at a university level, what might you suggest, or what would be a method for engaging that part of our community from your experiences? Because I mean, you both have a design background, so maybe if you want to share a little bit about what your experience was like in terms of pursuing a design program, and then how that might in turn provide some guidance on how somebody could get involved as an instructor.
For me, my program, so I went to the University of Cincinnati, and we had to really learn how to do things ourselves. And I think just showing the actual processes and how those are just the actual process that takes place, and not just in the States, but maybe different methods used in different places. And even just, I'm not sure if how this could exist, but even just showing the typical shift maybe that someone works at a sewing machine is, I don't know, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I think you quickly understand that that's really difficult, to sit through, or, you start to get carpal tunnel or whatever, that just to learn the methods, I guess, the processes as a human. What's that like?
Yeah, Daniela, why don't we, thanks, Rachel, for that. Daniela, let's hear from your perspective on how you would approach a design program and how you might approach being an instructor. And so I want to make sure we get both of your perspectives on that topic.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. So if I design a program, I love what Rachel said. I think exposure and to be exposure to manufacturing. If the program is about change and changing how the industry operates, it has to be a must for students to go to manufacturing countries to see different. And you know what, they can be there, some of them are beautiful, right? There are like campuses, there are university campuses with beautiful flowers and whatnot, and it's really nice. And then there are some that are not so great, and they're and to really understand what happens with wastewater and with dyeing, and how this is done in how materials are being produced, so that you know what goes into everything, every aspect. Doesn't have you don't have to be able to do it all, obviously, but you need to know what's going in, where are the pitfalls, where can something be improved, and observe. Again, it's like this curiosity, asking questions like, why does it need to be that way? And then I love this idea to be in a sewing line as well, and being in a cafeteria, in a factory, and using the bathroom there.
Yeah. I'm thinking of sewing a project where I went into just the sample making room, and the air was just filled with this dust from the fabric they were cutting. I think it was some sort of pile, like it wasn't velvet, but something like that was just releasing all these little particles. And I was like, why are we using that fabric? It's just, we don't have to use that fabric, but you've got to just actually be there to feel that, what that's actually like.
Yeah,
because
this is what you said earlier about designing around requirements, and also designing around issues that you yourself see, but you cannot know what might be an issue if you haven't been exposed to any of it.
Yeah, definitely. That, I don't know if that answers the question, but I wish that I'd had more, I guess, non-traditional internships that exposed me to those things.
I think you've covered it from the standpoint of having that range of experience being so critical to really being able to pursue your design and creative efforts there. So I hope that covers a little bit of Amber's question there. And from a university standpoint, anybody in our audience who might be interested in getting more involved with design programs, if you're in the industry and want to stay connected with university programs, there's a number of them that would appreciate experienced industry mentors. And we can have that posted through Inside Fashion Design in terms of different university resources. If you're an industry professional and you want to give back to the design community, we'll help out in terms of connecting you up with those resources. And that's on Inside Fashion Design. And then in terms of how to do that, I think it really comes down to how any of our audience members, as well as industry professionals, want to contribute their time. So it's sort of up to you in terms of what sort of time commitment are you willing to make to contribute back. So why don't we use this last few minutes here for both of you to maybe cover a final topic in terms of, for our audience. You touched on this earlier, and I think you sort of just hit the surface of it in terms of, if you could go back to design school, or if you had a chance to sort of re-enter your career, maybe share a little bit about what you might do, if you knew then what you know now, and let's do a little walk back in time, and let's close up with that question. And so, Rachel, let's start with you, please.
I think I would just ask more. I think I was just thinking about, runway fashion, and I was living in New York for internships and thinking about my little bubble, in the fashion world, as opposed to like all the other people who make that possible. Just to have that curiosity for who's behind the scenes making that work. And that's, to me, it's become more fascinating now than the actual the runway or any of that high fashion. It's the people on the other end who are, their lives are way more fascinating. So I think I would just go back and take a look at some of those stories.
That's correct. That's great. Just the difference between runway fashion and what I'll say is more usable or accessible fashion, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Hey, Daniela, why don't we ask the same question of you in terms of if you could re-engage at the coming into the industry, what might you approach a little bit differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. What would I do differently? I really have been quite blessed because I've been doing so many different things. I don't know if I would do anything differently. What I would do differently, knowing what I know now, is developing also the internal skills. Being because the fashion industry is very busy, and apparel in general is very busy, and you're always working and you're working late, and it's all great, but you're taking a lot of it's very easy to be caught up with the identity of being in that industry.
Yeah.
And that running you and running your decisions, because so it's developing a little earlier this, who am I really, and why am I doing what I'm doing, and what do I really love about this, and without that ego, and that sounds really without this self-importance, without the ego that goes with it. Because if you get away from the ego, if I had gotten away from the ego, I would have been able to ask better questions. I would have, who knows, what if it's that's a difficult one, but it really is that asking questions, being a little bit more like Rachel, like the badass.
No. You don't even see me in New York in the 90s. You would laugh.
No, but what I'm saying is being like the little pinch in the side for your boss, who's like, yeah, they have to just be happy. And actually, I was asking those questions.
Yeah.
I was standing in Bangladesh on the sidewalk and starting to cry and having like a talking match with my boss, who basically said, "Have your eyes open. This is the real world." And I just like, this is not the real world.
Yeah.
Because it's so upsetting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hey, those are great perspectives, and very real perspectives. And I think for those coming into our industry, that first true exposure to what I'll say is the unglamorous side of fashion, in terms of how the question around who made my clothes, or who made this, I think that's very, very relevant in this situation. So, hey, for our audience, I definitely recommend checking out the links that are in our chat for the Meridian Lee site, as well as the paper craft art links that were provided. So you'll see all of those. And for those that may have questions, to sign up for the newsletter at Inside Fashion Design to be able to connect with the design programs and have resources that way. We definitely want to say thank you to both Rachel and for Daniela to share their time with us today in this session. And as we wrap up today, we want to again promote everybody getting involved in terms of any of the social enterprises that speak to you today, to provide some support. And definitely try to get engaged within our industry, whether it's just for your own learning or if it's to support a particular cause that speaks to you. So thanks again, Daniela and Rachel, for
Thank
joining us
you.
today. And we'll have this session available to our audience via recording after the festival is over this weekend. So thanks again, and look for the next session at 3:30 with Lauren DeCarli from Paneros. And so thanks again, Rachel. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, you guys.
All right.
See you
Take
later.
care. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.